This is Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and it is my supreme pleasure to introduce you to one of the newest members of the United States Congress. You know him well. His name is Paul Cook. He was a member of the California State Assembly, and he was recently elected to the 8th Congressional District in the state of California. Congratulations. A tremendous victory, no doubt. And a victory that was won against a fellow Republican, a new beast in California. How was that for you, running against a Republican in the general?
Well, it was kind of strange, you know, the old dynamic on how you run a race. I think you could throw it out the window.
Right, clearly.
And so there were a lot of variables. We had to take that. We knew that we had to survive the primary,
right,
obviously, first or second. And then, at least from our perspective, we thought we'd be in pretty good shape. And, you know, on a number of issues, I think I had a little bit of a broader appeal. And we worked very, very hard. And I had a great staff, a lot of people that were loyal. And, you know, it does come down to hard work.
But ultimately, it was a nice victory, about 57%, which is solid, no complaints.
And we were very happy. And the best thing about it for us was my base that I had represented in San, that we did very, very well.
Right.
The newer area, you know, I'm a new guy who's cooked and all that stuff.
And if you think about it, now you are serving a geographic area that is just massive. I mean, you go all the way up the Arizona border, even past to the Nevada border, close to Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, just south of it, Bridgeport,
right,
which is in Mono County, and I have Inyo County, and there's not many people there. There's probably I don't know, more animals, cattle,
right,
coyotes.
Of course, right.
So it's very desolate, and getting around from point A to point B is going to be a challenge.
Sure. So you will have at least 2 district offices, I presume.
Yeah, I'm going to have one in Apple Valley.
Okay.
Apple Valley is one of the larger cities.
Right, high desert.
Yeah, and we have an arrangement. The town of Apple Valley, we're going to actually have an office right in there. And I kind of like that because I can find out what's going on in terms of road construction.
Nice.
We'll go to all the different sandbags, San Bernardino.
Of course, yes.
We'll have a rep right there because that's where they hold their meetings. And if I want to make sure I know what's going on in my area, that's what. And the other place was Yucaipa.
So we must talk about your first few weeks
in
the United States Congress. You landed some Plum Committee assignments: Veterans Affairs, Armed Services, and Foreign Affairs.
Yes, the 3 I wanted, and
makes sense given that you chaired Veterans Affairs in California, and you're a former colonel in the Navy, correct?
Colonel in the Marine Corps.
Marine Corps, thank you for correcting me. I'm sorry I made such a mistake.
We don't like colonels in the Navy.
Of course. But you had an amazing opportunity. You had the opportunity, the chance to question. She is now the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton as it relates to the Benghazi incident. Wow, in the first few weeks in your new job.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, and that she came over, and of course she testified in the Senate in the morning,
right?
And then she was in front of the House Committee for 3 hours, and you know, you can argue about her politics and what have you in policy, but in terms of I was surprised by her endurance. You know, she was. I think she brought her A game. You know, this is a Republican talking about a Democrat, and you know, a lot of people go in there and they want to blame, you know, the Republicans want to blame
her,
and the Democrats want, you know, I had some questions. You know, I'm very interested, so we don't do the same thing over again.
And it seemed as if that was her goal. We all have seen the famous exchange between she and the senator from Wisconsin, where they got into that tiff. And it seems like you're moving on that same path, which is let's look to the future.
Yeah, and you know, we can talk about politics later on and grandstanding, and I'm not saying that was done by, but here I am, a freshman.
Right.
You know, I'm there basically. Well, wait a minute. Let's find out, or how are we going to do this so it doesn't happen again? And of course, my questions revolved around the security force and the Marine security element. So And I was like, I am a freshman,
right.
you know, the oldest freshman in the world, but they finally get to me. I don't want to waste a question by saying, oh, Paul Cook's the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
Let's get down this so I get, and that's going to, you're going to see that's going to be how, or the way I operate
right.
there. Is that,
but here's the question. As I understand it, your question was looking towards the future about whether the Marines could be operated through the department in a different way than they had been.
Yeah, you know, in the discussion, it came out that the Marines, which the Marine security guards, they operate under the ambassador
right.
or the Secretary of State. Normally, the Marines, my entire life, right. I was never in that role. It was all part of the Department of Defense, and I'm not going to bore you.
Right.
But historically, the State Department thinks kumbaya,
right.
and DOD, you know, they're more militant, and
sure.
it's a different role. So if it was an element, or if it was a matter of security, you got these Marines that have been trained to do that, you have operational control over it, Madam Secretary, right. or Mr. or Mrs.
Right.
Ambassador. Use them when they're coming through the gates or over the wall. They are armed, and this is your own internal security force.
And Secretary Clinton seemed to take kindly to that comment.
I think she understood where I was going. I don't know if the other members of the committee, and God only knows right. But I was looking at it in terms of task organizing. When you have a crisis situation like that, you can't call higher headquarters and everything else, because when things go right. bad, it happens very, very quickly.
But then the question becomes, you have this idea that some would argue is a good one. How do you take it to the next level? You told the secretary your idea. She is no longer the secretary. You know, that's what I'm trying to get a sense.
You know, part of it, you know, I'm interjecting my thought in terms of policy in the future. Obviously, one Paul Cook is not going to make a big difference.
Well, why not?
Well,
can't you? Because it's a small thought, but it's one that could make a difference.
We're going to do a point paper on it.
Okay.
She did say that I would like more information
yes.
on that, and a point paper or a position paper to send that over to state on, you know, it's one person.
Right.
I don't know the procedures, whether the committee would want to see it first. I believe in operating through the, but it's not to get my name in front
and
of.
I'm not suggesting that.
It's the whole goal here is I don't want any more ambassadors. Right. I don't want the American, because maybe if we had a different contingency for what happened, then it won't occur again. And unfortunately, this is what happens. You know, you have embassies, they're in very right. dangerous places.
I mean, a few weeks ago, there was a bombing in Turkey, as you know.
Absolutely.
And so, fortunately, they weren't able to penetrate deeply, but look, these are happening. These events are happening.
We had this in Iran where
right.
It was taken over. We had the Marine barracks. We've had
Lebanon. Right.
You know, you could go through, it's a very, very dangerous place. And I think when my position was, hey, here's another way to look at this so that we can be better prepared. And if it gathers momentum and you can make a small difference and you save somebody's life, then
I do want to push you on that.
Okay.
How do you make it gather that momentum? I mean, you're one of 435. I don't have a sense as to.
Well, you're asking a question. I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure. I
understand.
You know, this is the first day. This is the first day of kindergarten.
Yes, I get it.
But I'm not afraid to advance.
Right.
From a procedural standpoint, I don't know. We got to find out on how we're doing. But I thought since she was there, that was the type of question I was going to ask, and that's my job, and you know, I'm going to do it.
So you're enjoying your new job?
It's new. As I said, I still get lost going to and it's kind of ironic. Years ago, I was the most dangerous weapon in the world, a second lieutenant with a map
right.
and a compass.
Of
now
course.
I'm still getting lost.
I love it. His name is Paul Cook. He's a member of the United States Congress. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Janice Rutherford. She's a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Bernardino County. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition. Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I am Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Janice Rutherford, she is now the chair of the Board of Supervisors in San Bernardino County. Congratulations. A tremendous feat, no doubt. How are you doing? You have two small children. I mean, it's got to be tough.
I'm busy. I work really hard to get enough sleep, but I'm having a great time with everything, family and work.
No doubt. Now, what's interesting, too, about your board, it's 5 members, and you have 2 new members.
Brand new.
Yeah, brand new members, James Ramos and Robert Lovingood. And so I'm sure you're trying to get those 2 up to speed. How is that being chair? And then with 2 new members.
It's a fabulous challenge, and they are both so eager to learn and contribute. And thankfully, they are also eager to ask questions and get advice. They have really good ideas, and then we say, well, we've tried that, and here's how it worked out. So they're really in learning mode, and they're doing fabulous.
And I must mention that you were elected 2 years ago. So now, over the last 2 cycles, the majority of the board are new members. Right. And so a lot of people say amen, given the problems of the prior board before you arrived. Yeah. You know, members under indictment, and it was a tough time.
We have a fabulous team with a fresh direction, exciting times, and we're going to see great things happening in the county in the coming years.
So let's talk about some of the good government tactics that you really have been spearheading from day one. Because I think it's fair to say you got elected on a good government platform. Mm-hmm. Bill Leonard, your mentor, was known as Mr. Good Government. So none of this is out of character. It makes sense. This is where the tune that you're marching to. You recently had some campaign finance reforms placed. Tell us about those reforms, and I want to get to a really innovative solution that you had.
Well, we looked at how to reinstill public confidence in the county and do some ethics reform. Mm-hmm. We talked about forming a local ethics commission. We couldn't figure out a way to have a local commission that somebody didn't say, hey, that's the fox guarding the hen house. Right. So we looked to the state, which has the Fair Political Practices Commission. Already exists, nonpartisan, loved and hated equally by everyone.
Perfect. That means
and they enforce campaign contribution limits. So we in San Bernardino County adopted the state's contribution limits.
Okay.
So about $4,100 right now, because the size of a San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors seat is just a little smaller than a state legislative seat. So we adopted those limits and contracted with the Fair Political Practices Commission, thanks to legislation by now Congressman Paul Cook.
Got it.
That allows them to take that contract and do that work for us.
Incredibly innovative.
Yeah,
incredibly
it's fabulous, and we're also contracting for a certain number of audits every year. So there will be an auditor looking at my books and the other candidates' books on a regular basis.
I have to think that other counties are looking to San Bernardino as an example of this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we've already heard from several of them, and the FPPC is reaching out to talk, and it's exciting.
I want to talk to you also about something that's known as the Brown Act. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting piece of legislation, and I will say on the record, I'm very conflicted by the Brown Act. Explain what the Brown Act prevents.
Well, the Brown Act's intention is to make sure that the public's business is done in public, open doors where the public can participate. So a board is not allowed to take any action or give direction on the item unless it's agendized, noticed well in advance, and at a public open meeting, except those things that are allowed to be discussed in a closed session, a real estate transaction, a lawsuit, a personnel matter. So it's great for the public. It's challenging. If you think about how you run your business or even a little league board, you talk to your other board members, you build relationships. But from the public's point of view, that is backroom dealing when we're talking about public sector, so we can't do that.
But there are 5 members on the Board of Supervisors. You cannot talk to a majority of the members about an item for fear of violating the Brown Act. Right. So that means that Janice Rutherford can talk to one other board member. To me, that seems...
About a particular subject.
Exactly. Yes. You can't then go to another board member to talk about the same subject. That would be a serial meeting.
Correct.
Let alone have 2 members in the same location talk about it to equal 3. But then how do you build coalitions? How do you build consensus if you can't talk to your fellow board members? And again, I'm not picking on you. This is a state law, but I've always been flummoxed by it.
Sure, as I have as well. And so what I'm instituting are study sessions of the Board of Supervisors, where we're going to get together on off days from our formal meetings.
Okay.
We're going to gather, still a noticed, agendized meeting where the public is welcome to come and participate, but we're going to sit not at a dais with a phalanx of cameras looking at us, but around a table together with our staff and study and dig into particular issues. So then the 5 of us can speak and share our minds and ask questions and do that in a public setting, but with a little less pressure to make the decision today, more to understand the issue and put it in full context.
So in theory, it's an open meeting.
It's still an open meeting, absolutely.
Anyone could attend if they so desire, but unlikely a huge crowd because of when it would happen.
We don't get huge crowds at our formal meetings either.
Okay.
We get a handful of folks, and I would hope that actually in these meetings you'll get more stakeholders who are interested in particular issues to come out and give us their 2 cents as well.
You may not be prepared to answer this, but I'll just throw it out there. Do you think it's time to look at revising the Brown Act?
I think it is, and I think in that context, we also have to ask the state legislature to make some of the provisions apply to themselves.
I knew you were going to say that.
They have this idea that we publish a bill at 8 a.m. and ask you to vote on it at 9 a.m. is insane. It's bad government. It's got to be fixed.
And we've spoken with many members. I think Paul Cook, one of them, Brian Nestiani, a lot from the Inland Empire, about looking toward creating more transparency. So in Sacramento, there's no Brown Act. I mean, they can talk to each other?
Well, there's a lot more of them, so they can talk to more. They have the Bagley-Keene Act. It has some different provisions. They certainly don't do open government the way local governments do it.
I want to talk about your county more generally. You know that San Bernardino County was hit so hard by this economic downturn. I was listening to the radio this morning, San Bernardino County's second highest foreclosure rate in the nation. I mean, we're not talking in California. The unemployment rate is very high.
Creeped up
creeped down. Yes,
employment creeped up.
Which was great news. And then there are the travails of the city of San Bernardino. Talk to me about what you are trying to do to bring your county back.
We've got to be better salespeople ourselves. There is so much good in San Bernardino County, but it's human nature, I think, to focus on the bad. So we've got to do a better job of focusing on those things that are going well. We have to help our cities. Our cities are in great struggles with Sacramento right now.
But it's interesting you mention your cities. You're from Fontana, which is a beautiful city. And look, for better or for worse, it appears that Fontana is just sucking all the air from the room vis-a-vis San Bernardino.
Well, the redevelopment hit that the state made to cities is making a difference in Fontana too. Fontana is a low property tax city, but it was made up for in redevelopment dollars. Well, now that those dollars are down, Fontana's property tax remains far too low in an unfair situation. There are challenges in every city. San Bernardino is not the only city in the county that's struggling financially.
Yeah, but
they're struggling in a big way.
I mean, they're bankrupt.
You may see some others that are on the verge of declaring bankruptcy.
Not Fontana.
Not Fontana.
I was going to say.
Not Fontana.
Well, let's talk about redevelopment then, because it's for some it was a tremendous asset as a government tool. For others, it was seen as a boondoggle. We're about to speak with the Auditor-Controller of Riverside County, who's the successor agency for their redevelopment agency. Are you interested in seeing the state bring back some form of redevelopment to allow counties, cities to use some type of property tax increment to revitalize, incentivize?
I don't even know that we need to call it redevelopment, and I don't even know if tax increment is the way. We have got to have, as local governments, some toolbox to help people who want to bring jobs to our region. And we don't have anything right now.
Any enterprise zones in your communities?
Not in my district, but in the county. So we've got to put on our thinking caps and come up with something new and out of the box. I hope the governor's up for that. I know that local elected officials are.
Speaking out of the box, there is one piece of very good news in San Bernardino County, and that is Amazon. Amazon is shipping a lot of boxes, Madam Rutherford.
They ship them to my doorstep, I know.
But it's their new distribution center. There are 2 in the state. That was done as part of the compromise.
Senator Dutton helped us with that.
Yeah. And it's in San Bernardino County.
Yep.
Hello.
Yeah,
Tell us about it. I haven't been there yet.
I haven't been out there yet either.
Okay.
I think it's on my schedule. It's in San Bernardino. It's over by the former Norton Air Force Base.
Is it in the city or in the county?
I think it's in the city.
Okay, so that is huge news.
Huge for the city and fabulous for our region. I know my boxes are getting there in a day.
Can I tell you, literally, I have ordered in the morning and they show up. I don't understand. I don't live that close to San Bernardino.
There's a lot of department stores doing that now. You order online and they have it to you later in the day.
So it's been, I don't know, a few weeks since you've become chair. Are you enjoying yourself?
I am. It's fun to work with this great team of people and amazing staff that we have in San Bernardino County. We have employees who work hard and do great things for our residents and our taxpayers. And there's challenges ahead, no doubt, but we're in a good position to take them on creatively. Well,
congratulations. Her name is Janice Rutherford. She is chair of the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Paul Angelo. He is the Auditor-Controller of Riverside County. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition. Welcome back to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Paul Angelo, he is the elected Riverside County Auditor-Controller. Sir, I am glad you are here. Before we talk more about your position, what is your position?
I am the elected Riverside County Auditor-Controller. It's a county-wide elected position.
Let's talk about the various positions in this realm because there could be confusion depending on which county you're in. There is an elected assessor in Riverside County,
yes,
and then there's the elected auditor-controller. In some counties, those positions seem more unified. What is your role versus the role of the elected assessor in Riverside, for example, Larry Ward?
That's a great question. First, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Please.
And I'd like to thank the people of Riverside County for the trust and confidence they placed in me.
Absolutely.
The assessor places the valuations on property, county-wide, and my office then takes that data and extends it to the values that the homeowners actually get.
So when we write our property tax checks and we send them in, are they going to your office, the assessor's office, the registrar recorder's office, or neither of those offices?
Okay, neither of those offices.
Okay, I got it all wrong. Where are they going?
They actually go to the treasurer's office.
And is he or she elected?
That's an elected position as well.
In Riverside County?
Yes, sir.
But in some counties, not elected?
Correct.
Okay. So there's also a registrar recorder. The recorder side deals with deeds.
Yes.
The registrar side deals with voting, I guess.
Right.
Okay, it's very confusing. What do you do?
Well, this is a really great question because a lot of people don't exactly know the extent. We provide oversight over close to $14 billion of taxpayer money. And what we do is we do the payroll for, one of the functions we do is payroll for the Riverside County government, which is about $1.4 billion annually.
And I was stunned when you reminded me that Riverside County is as large as New Jersey.
Yes, it is.
And it's not small in terms of population either, over 2 million residents. I mean, there are states that are smaller than 2 million.
Correct.
So you're operating essentially a state here.
Yes, sir. We're actually, there are 15 states that have a smaller population than the county of Riverside.
So in addition to payroll, one of your duties, and I guess that's the auditor side, is you are engaging in a bona fide good government function.
Absolutely. The biggest of which is accountability and transparency. I'd say it's probably the primary, so the people, the taxpayer, understand where their money is going and how it's utilized.
So let's talk about auditing, because there are a lot of elected officials who get on their soapbox and talk about how they're ferreting out fraud, waste, and abuse. It's probably a little easier to do when you're dealing with a smaller entity, also smaller geographically. But Riverside County goes to the Arizona border. Isn't that right? It does.
Yes, it does.
It's a huge area. So how are you able to engage in that auditor function?
Well, that's another great question. We do this in a multiple of ways. We have independent auditors assist us.
Independent meaning outside, not county employees.
Correct.
So you retain an accounting firm for
correct. We have our own internal audits department. We also run proprietary algorithms through the county.
Proprietary means owned, developed? I mean,
exactly, by our
unique.
office. Yes, we have a very talented, committed staff.
Right.
And we're constantly on the edge trying to be innovative.
Yeah, tell me about this algorithm. I was very intrigued when you told me about, well, you tell me.
Well, what the algorithm does is it takes millions of transactions and it searches out for anomalies. Right. And when we discover an anomaly, that's where we would send our internal audit team.
How often does that happen?
It happens more often than you would think.
Right, I know you can't say too much, it's proprietary.
Yeah, it is, and it's, we don't want to get too much information out there, but we investigate it, and it's not very often there's reasons for explanations.
I mean, you think about, I know this is not your department, but the Parks Department in the state, they had hidden, it was $54 million, and when it's all been uncovered, it wound up, it started as an accounting error, and then they started to cover up the accounting error. And so, fortunately that didn't happen here in this county. I want to get a sense from you about how you're trying to become more green. Because let's face it, government can produce so much paper, and in a county this size, it becomes even more important that you're able to interact with your various constituencies, but you can do that paperless.
Absolutely. We're looking into a paperless system. and using the Auditor-Controller office as the incubator, as the experimental station.
Throughout the county?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, because we process a lot of invoices and a lot of paperwork as well. And I think that's where we're going to be able to save the taxpayer a substantive amount of money. But more importantly, it's going to increase transparency and accountability and allow county decision makers to make better decisions, having data at their disposal.
Right.
We've also recently completed paying our employees online instead of a paper check.
Direct deposit.
Correct. So that reduce this instance of fraud. And we're also reduce the warrants, which are in private sector, are checks to vendors. So we also pay vendors online.
I've spoken with many members of various levels of government about the issue of redevelopment. As you know, redevelopment was a program whereby counties, cities could take a certain percentage of property tax in redevelopment areas and use that to revitalize blight, create incentives for private developers to come in. Redevelopment was eliminated by the state. That elimination was upheld by the California Supreme Court. You are involved in, I guess, the unwinding of redevelopment?
Yes. I am the go-to person in Riverside County for the unwinding.
So you're the successor agency?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I am the big kahuna, as it were.
I didn't realize that.
All the money comes through my office, and it in turn is disbursed to the taxing agencies, monies that do.
The money that would have gone to the redevelopment agencies
Correct.
are now flowing through your office. So the school districts, for example, I don't know specifically about Riverside County, but there are plenty of entities that had redevelopment agencies that are fighting with the state saying, this project was still in the pipeline, we want to be able to keep this money. Are you involved in that process?
Yes, we are involved in that, and we've entertained some legal action on that. The reason being that the state, I think, is pretty clear. If the project has started, go ahead and complete it. If it was just in the planning purposes, cease and desist.
But let's face it, the state has taken a very aggressive position about whether a project was in the pipeline. At the same time, cities and counties were taking aggressive positions in anticipation of the elimination of redevelopment, starting to put projects in the pipeline quickly.
Absolutely.
So what's happening in this county as a microcosm for the fight that's going on in the state?
Well, we're basically, the county's actually pushing very hard on trying to complete those projects.
But are you in bona fide fights with Sacramento? I mean, there have been lawsuits already. Pasadena, Glendale, they were in lawsuits with Sacramento over this issue.
This is behind the scenes, more behind the scenes
that's good
than
to hear.
In the court.
That's good to hear.
In the court. What I do want to say, it's a very sensitive issue because the taxpayer right now in Riverside County is on the hook for $10 billion.
In terms of redevelopment?
Yes, in terms of redevelopment, which I believe is a whopping amount.
But so when you say they're on the hook, meaning the county had bonded for $10 billion worth of redevelopment projects that are not going?
No, they are going.
That are going.
Yes, so the debt is there.
But are they able to get revenue to pay off this debt?
Yes.
They can continue.
We're going to continue to receive that revenue.
Okay.
But however, the taxpayer will continue to, the revenue comes from the taxpayer.
Of course.
And we're looking at 20 to 30 year payback here.
And let's face it, Riverside County has been hit very hard by the foreclosure crisis.
Correct.
And so we know property taxes have been down. I've spoken with Larry Ward about that issue. I think there's a slight uptick. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes.
And so how will that benefit the debt service, the taxpayer in general?
Well, it's a very small increment, the uptick. And to pay down $10 billion is no mean task.
Right.
What I want to say secondarily is that the nexus was great for redevelopment, to redevelop blight areas, but it sort of got ahead of itself.
In some places, for sure.
Yeah, so what we'd like to see, some of us would like to see, is an increase in revenues so those revenues are earmarked for that development.
You'll have to come back and talk about it. His name is Paul Angulo. He is the Auditor-Controller for Riverside County. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition.